Buenas, buenas. Welcome to Music Marketing TV. I'm Kevin Ochoa, and today we're going to be covering FL Studio's webinar for Pro Tools users. We're going to be going over all the classes that we did so far, which are Introduction to FL's Workflow, Recording and Audio Editing, MIDI Editing, FL Studio Synths, FL Studio Effects. And we're going to review a little bit about each topic. So as people roll into the stream, please let me know where you guys are tuning in from. And I'm going to give the stream probably 5 to 10 minutes to get everyone situated, because usually you have to wait around that time to get everyone into the chat. And I'm also going to set up my phone so I can see any of the messages you get and be able to respond to them easily. And as always, there's going to be an open Q&A at the very end. Of course, I'll try to answer questions if you guys are asking questions about certain topics that I'm covering at the moment. Let's see. By the way, if you guys aren't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and like the video. Also, join our Facebook group. I'll try to link the Facebook group here right now while I'm at it, while we're waiting for people to roll in. Oh no, YouTube ads. I just got a YouTube ad trying to hop on the live stream. Okay, there we go. So I'll link the Facebook group. And for those of you who don't know, our Facebook group is regulated by us, so we don't allow spam on it, any of that nature. So it's mainly for educational purposes. Often people will ask questions there, and if how do you say? Sometimes if someone posts someone else's YouTube videos, it's fine because it's educational. But for the most part, we just answer questions there. Okay, let me get. Oh no, I'm trying to. Okay, here you go. Send it from my phone to my computer. So this is the FL Studio Club on Facebook. So essentially, we just we have 907 members, and yeah, we had one new post today. But once you join the group, you'll be able to see lots of videos that we had uploaded here through the past year, and also many questions that people have asked. And eventually, we might start to do contests there. So make sure you're also in that group as well as with this YouTube channel. So I'll drop down the link to the chat. All right. No, I'm not gonna try to keep using Windows Explorer. Okay. Or Microsoft Explorer, but here we go. So once again, we're gonna cover FL's workflow, recording and audio editing, MIDI editing, FL Studio Synths, and FL Studio effects. A little bit of each topic, right? So let's open up FL. And here's FL as you would usually see it. Let me make this just whole screen. So the first time you load FL, it's just basically a sequencer that has a kick, clap, a hi-hat, and a snare loaded. And immediately you can just left click on the step sequencer to create patterns. Now, where do these instrument channels go? Well, they go to the mixer based on the mixer target track. That's on the left hand side right here. You can see there, if I switch a number to track number 5, that kick is into track number 5 now. If I put this on a playlist, you'll notice that these instruments are all grouped together because FL Studio works in patterns. Whereas most DWs, you would have a MIDI clip, and then you'd access that MIDI clip. FL Studio works with patterns, so there's multiple MIDI clips inside that pattern. As you see here, there's this MIDI clip right here inside of it. You see this? Here you can import and export MIDI. So if I left click over here on the file menu, you can import and export MIDI. So essentially, this pattern contains multiple MIDI files. Now, if you wanted to start arranging stuff, what you would do is right click on the pattern, select split by channel, and now your kick, your clap, your hi-hat, and your snare, or any of the instruments that you have, are in different channels on the playlist window. Now, it's important to note that the playlist window is not directly correlated to the mixer. So if I were to play the kick on track, let's say 7, that kick is still going to the specific target track, which is track number 5. If I switch that kick back to target track number 1, it doesn't matter if I'm placing that kick on track number 7 or track number 6. It's still being sent to that mixer track number 1. Again, because think about this like as an actual rack where you're directly connected from that rack to your mixer. So a lot of people have a hard time figuring that out, but it's very, very simple. So once you're done with this, you can set up an arrangement. What I'm doing here is pressing Control, left click and drag to select my instruments. Then I can press Control B to duplicate. I could have also used my tools, my tools that are for writing, which translate very easily to the playlist as well. So what I mean is some of the tools that we use for MIDI writing work pretty much exactly the same inside of the playlist. So if I have my brush tool open, if I have the kick, I can simply brush in the kick pattern like that. See that? I could do the same with the clap. Now the steps over here on the top left hand corner, the little magnet tells us how many steps we want to, or the resolution of the playlist. So if I chose the clap, instead of how we had it earlier where if I put the clap a little bit off, it would be off, right? You see that? Now instead of that, when I put it to bar, that clap is quantized to that bar. Same thing with the hi-hat and the snare. And it's easy to start laying down a beat and spreading out on your playlist. Now, if I wanted to render this, super simple. I just highlight the area onto render. Usually you'd want to leave a little bit of space for any reverb that you have decaying. You press File, export audio WAV file, MP3, OGG, FLAC, MIDI file, whatever type of file you want to export, you can do it from here. You can also export a zip loop package. So if you have a collaboration you're working on and you're going to take it to someone else's computer, you click on zip loop package and all your audio files are going to get zipped. So let's click on WAV file and let's just put this on my desktop. FL beat. And here I have my rendering options. So I have sound selection, leave remainder. You can select cut remainder if you like to. You can split the mixer tracks, so you'll get the stems here. Actually, let's leave it there so I can show you quickly how to import audio back into a file. And you can enable the insert effects. So you see the fruity limiter that I have in master. When we enable the insert effects, it keeps all the insert effects on. If I were to have that off, it turn off all my insert effects. So this is a quick way to get your mixes out to a mixing engineer, or your track out to a mixing engineer, because you can disable the effects on it. So you can take off the reverb, the compression, and any of the things that you've done to your tracks, or remove that with that click of a button and send the stems over to the mixing engineer. So I'm keeping them on there for a second, and then I'll press start. And now on my desktop, I should have my files right here. So now what I'll do is I'm going to load a new FL Studio project. I'll go to new from template, minimal, and I'll choose empty. So that way I don't have the traditional kick, clap, snare, hi-hat template loaded. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these files and drag them into a file. Now what I'm going to do is, instead of putting them on the channel rack to trigger them as audio clips, I'm going to put them on this track right here, track number 1. What this will do is it will create a hard link between track number 1, the mixer track, and the channel rack. So let's go track number 1 and put it on there. And I'll have a drop down menu that says, do you want to create audio clips, audio tracks, or instrument tracks? You can select audio clips, and that will work like as we did earlier, where we have the audio or the MIDI clips pretty much anywhere in the playlist, or I can select audio tracks. I'm going to go with audio tracks, and boom. All my my tracks are hard linked now. So here's my master track for the song. I'm going to mute that by pressing T or selecting my mute button. Again, all the shortcuts are on the top left hand corner of the file. You get the draw, paint, delete, mute, slip, slice, select, zoom, playback, and you'll see the actual shortcut of it in the info tab right there. So there are my stems. Now if I drop them down a little bit, again, because these files are 32-bit, you'll be fine. I could also select all of them and change the gain over here before it hits any effects that I want to add on my track. And a quick way to copy level settings, let's say I want to set them all to -6. I can right click, select copy value, and paste. I can do that value to pretty much all my tracks. I'm going to select a loop point from bar number 1 to bar number 9. And FL is a little bit different than most other programs. Most other programs you have to right click and drag to create a loop point. With FL you can do pretty much either way. I'm more used to dragging from the right to the left. I know most people are completely opposite. They drag from left to the right. But there you go. So now that we have the tracks here, what I'll do is just start adding effects to them. So I'm going to go to that snare or the clap. It's such a heavy clap almost feel like it's a snare. So I'm going to come into the EQ. And again, I'm loading effects by right-clicking on the slot that I want to add effects to. And when I right-click, it opens up my plugin picker, which is essentially my favorite plugins. If I wanted to see a full list of all my plugins, I could left-click and select more plugins up here. And here you get a full list of all the plugins installed in your system, which is quite a bit. I have probably like 1,000 of them. If you go into your file browser, you could also see them on the third tab right here under plugin database. And again, the shortcuts for all these parameters are on the top left-hand corner. Here I can select if I want to load up a generator plugin. So these are the synthesizers, samples, and all that. On the installed, under effects, we have all your effects plugins. So here, let's say I wanted to add a Pro C2 from FabFilter. I just have to make sure I'm typing it right. You can also do a fast plugin scan by right-clicking and pressing refresh plugins. So right there, my plugin list is getting updated. I'm just going to let it run through. I accidentally clicked on that. Just give it a second. Let's see how the stream is going so far. Hey, Jer, can you export files in the same way in the FLVST? I'm actually not sure. I haven't tried it. I think you should be able to. We could test it out. But you should be able to. Okay, it's almost done scanning for all my new VST plugins. But yeah, it doesn't take that long to scan. There you go. Took like a minute. As you can see, there's no new plugins, but if there was new plugins in your system, you'd see a new tab right here, and all the new plugins would be highlighted in yellow. So here we could test that out, Jer. Let me save this file. Save as, put it on the desktop. All this test project. Now, like I said, we can load up plugins by right-clicking and selecting Smart File in this folder. So I can just type in the name of a plugin, and boom, it will show up there. I can drag it into the mixture manually. I could also have double-clicked, right-click, and select to the send to channel or focus plugin, and there will replace the plugin that I had on there. Again, I wanted to use the FabFilter Pro C2, so let's load that up. And let's down some compression. Actually, I'm on the wrong channel. I was like, why can't I hear that? Okay, there we go. Okay. So you can make a clap that has less lows and a little bit more mids right here. It's still a very heavy clap, as you can see here. It has a really long sustain, so I think maybe even adding a gate would be very helpful. But let's not get into that. We're just trying to show you how to load up effects. Okay, so let's say you wanted to bus all these drums together. I could right click and drag, or left click and drag to select multiple channels together. Again, left click, control, drag. Then I can right click on this other channel and select route to this track, or route to this track only. So we're going to do that. right click at the bottom arrow right here, right click, select sidechain to this track or route to this track only. I'm going to choose route to this track only. So now all the tracks are coming in through mixer track number 1 before they hit the master bus. So now essentially this guy has become our drum bus. And apparently this guy over here, we didn't click on it. So we can just easily disconnect that cable and connect it back there. There we go. And yeah, that's how you bus things around. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add, let's say, I want to do something atrocious here. Let's add some reverb to that bus. Actually, I'll show you that. I'll show you how to set that up as a send in a second. Instead, let's use the Maximus plugin, which is a multiband compressor, expander, gator, saturator. It does so many things. It's a very advanced plugin. Again, if you want to see a full in-depth video with this, check out the class that we did on FL Studio Effects last week. So it's uploaded to the channel. It's was published July 16. So I did I think a 15-20 minute segment on just Maximus alone. But essentially, you can dial in saturation, gating if you'd like. You can do some steer width management and also do some low cutting. So it's a very mastering oriented plugin. However, it can do lots of crazy stuff. Let me just show you something with the mids. So it's a very powerful sound design tool. So essentially here what I'm doing is I'm letting the initial attack of the cake go clean first, and then we're doing extreme amounts of saturation and distortion. But yeah, let's click a preset up here. Let's choose let's see, insert punchy drums number 3. I'm gonna bring the pre-gain down a little bit. Okay, now let's say I wanted to add a send for this to make like a drum reverb send. I would go to another track, load up the fruity reverb, put that to 0% dry, and bring up the early reflections and leave the wet a little bit down because we don't want a lot of late reflections on this. And now what I'll do is I'll go back to the bus and I'll right click on that mixer track number 9, which is the one where I loaded the reverb. I'll select route to this track, and now my track is coming in at full sound level. I don't want that much reverb though, so I'm gonna pull this down. And there we go. We're getting a little bit of reverb. We can even bring some of those highs back in. And there you go. We have set up buses, sends, and loaded effects. So that's pretty much how you work inside of FL with first with MIDI programming, and then with importing audio in and setting it up on your mixer track. It's very simple once you get your head around it. So it's at first, like I said earlier, it's kind of difficult because pretty much any track could be anything. It could be MIDI, it could be audio. But once you say, hey, I want to keep this track as an audio track, you can go ahead and do so simply by right-clicking, selecting track mode, audio track, and assigning it to specific mixer track. So let's say I wanted to route this one to mixer track 15. Now this guy corresponds to mixer track 15. And again, in typical FL fashion, you could pretty much put this anywhere on the playlist. But you know, we're not going to do that because we don't want to be madmen. Oh, okay, Jer asked, what's the shortcut to connect a cable on the bus? So again, that's, You press Control, left click and drag, and then you right click on here and select route to this track. It's not really a shortcut, but it's just an easier way of doing it instead of doing it manually. So quickly again, let's remove them. So now some of them are going to the master bus still. So I'm going to right click on channel 22, which is what I want to be my bus. And I can select route to this track. So now 22 can be ascend, or I can make it a bus, right? So if I want to make it a bus, I'll select route to this track only. And now these are all routed specifically to track 22 before it hits the master. Let me know if that's a little bit clearer. You could also, let's say, if you load up more instruments here, let's load up Palmer, press F8, I'll load up Sakura, and I'll load up Poison. Now let's say I had these instruments without any destination. What I could do is right click and drag to select multiple of them, right click drag, and then I can come to the mixer track, then press Control L, and now they're all routed to the same as if it were a bus. Now if I wanted to route these to different ones, I can left click, Control and drag to select multiple mixer tracks, and then press Control L now. And now these are all routed to their own individual mixer tracks. So very, very simple and very easy way to work. This is also very helpful when, let's say, you have a project and you have effects and some imported samples. Usually you don't have them routed pretty much anywhere. So you have them going to the master, and then what you're doing is you're pretty much just controlling the level with your channel volume. So then what you can do is come up here, select the sort by track number. And what this will do is if you have a, let's say, let's load up another instrument. You see how these instruments are down here? Well, if you're building a project, usually they'll get randomly left around. You know, maybe you found that sound worked out for you really well, so you didn't actually give it a mixer track. So, you know, you'll write MIDI to it, but then you'll, at the end of the project, you're like, oh no, it's going straight to my master. What should I do? Well, if you click on the options menu up here, you can go to sort by. You can select track number, and now all the tracks that are not routed to anywhere, so if they're just going straight to the master, they'll be blank. Then you got your track number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then my instruments that I added on tracks 26 to 28. But the important part is here that all the audio files or all the instruments that are not routing anywhere are left on top. So now you can select all of them by right-clicking and dragging, and you can come up here and do exactly what we did earlier with the synthesizers. Press Control, left-click and drag to select multiple files or multiple mixer tracks to target to, and then press Control L, and now you have routed those audio tracks or instrument tracks here. And now once you go to render stems, if I go to File, Export WAV file, enable split mixer tracks, now all your tracks are going to be individually exported. So that's really helpful. Oh, when it comes to routing cables, there's not really a shortcut. You just grab them and right click on the target track that you want to send them to. So it's kind of, you know, it doesn't have, there's no matrix, but it's kind of funny because you'd expect it to be very confusing, but once you're used to the FLWay, you kind of know already, hey, if I come here to this track, I want to see where it's routed, and you can clearly see that with this cable. It's very strange because usually you're used to seeing something like a mixer. Let me pull up my total mix effects. Usually you're used to seeing something like this inside DAWs, where you'll see you know, the audio coming in to one track, and you can send it to another one. So it's you know, right here I have my analog inputs 1 and 2, and it's going to my ADAT 7/8. You'll usually find matrices like these in most DAWs, but with FL you don't really have that. You're just using this cable mechanism, and it surprisingly works pretty cleanly. Also, if you're, let's say, you want to plug in hardware, if you're going from, let's say, channel 22, you can select, I want this to go to my ADAT 3, and then you can go to channel 23, and you can put the input to be 5 and 6. Maybe that's the one you're getting your compressor signal return from. So that's where you can set it up. Okay, now let's move on to some actual music stuff. Now we covered the workflow. Oh, I just remembered. You asked me about exporting from the FL VST. Let's try that out. Let's load up the FL Studio VST. By the way, some of you guys might not know this, but there's an FL Studio VST. So essentially what you're able to do is load up FL Studio inside another DAW. Kind of like Rewire, but on steroids. So here is a little module. When you click on this, you open up another FL Studio inside a DAW. So here I've done it with inside of FL itself. Let's try to open up that file. Let's go open, Control O. Let's load up this test project. Let's give it a second to load. Oh, it's loaded. I just don't have the windows open. Okay, that's what happened. I was over here thinking my system crashed, but it was open. Okay, so yeah, there we go. Let's select that range. Let's file, export, WAV file, and let's call this test project 2. Save this, and then we'll select split mixer tracks. Start. That seems pretty quick. Oh, there they are. So test project right there. And some of them are named pretty much the same as the other one. So you'll see there, let's drag them back into the project. Audio clips for now. Yep, you see that test project. Yep, it works fine. Let's see. Actually, that was a little weird. So you got the claps going. Did it have something muted? I believe I did. Let's see. Yeah, I had my... Okay, so this one has to get muted right there. Because that's the current channel. Okay. So yeah, I just had my clap solo. So now let's export again. Export WAV file. Let's call this FLVST render. Start. Come on, close it. There you go. Let's load it up to the big FL project. And let's mute this FL plugin. Awesome. It renders them all out. So, by the way, before I move on forward, I've gone and asked, why does FL export 2 masters? Well, it doesn't really export 2 masters. The thing is, FL Studio has a current channel. The current channel in FL is basically an analysis plugin channel. So you can load up, let's say, Wave Candy, and you can go on, let's say, this is my hi-hat. So while I'm in my whole mix, I can go over to the hi-hat and put my analyzing plugin just on the hi-hat. Or just on the kick drum. It just depends on what mixer track I'm on. So by having that current channel, you're able to put multiple different analysis plugins. You can load up Nugent Audio, what's this, the Visualizer? I almost forgot the name. Visualizer, you can use whatever metering plugins you like, put them on this current channel. You can go around seeing what your audio actually looks like, without having to load up plugin on that mixer channel, or without having to solo that mixer channel. So usually you'd have to, if you have a really big session, you have to drag all the way over here to see what track number 98 sounds like and how it's running. Solo the track and then unsolo it. Well, you don't have to do that in this with the current channel. Basically, you just, whatever plugins you have on the current channel, they'll just analyze whatever track you're on at the moment. So you want to hop back to the master, you can see everything back together. So what happens is that FL actually does render the current channel. So kind of annoying, but all you have to do is just simply remove it, delete it from before you import it into your project. So you could have deleted it over here. Usually it's one of the first channels. And let's go back to here. And you also get the master of the render of the master channel. And if the last channel I was on during my project, if I was on my hi-hat, for example, just the hi-hat would be rendered through that current channel. So people often ask me, hey, why did my project render 2 snares or 2 hi-hats, or why did it render my master twice? Well, it's because you had the current channel on that specific channel at the time. It's a really cool utility plugin, or utility channel though. What's up, Seisana? By the way, guys, let me know where you guys are joining us from. I like to keep tabs of where in the world you guys are from. We're trying to reach every continent at the same time. Okay. So let's see. Like I said, let's move on to the music stuff. And actually, I need to get a water break. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So here I had a hip hop beat that I was working on. Essentially, what I had done was I analyzed a track that I liked when I was younger, which is President Carter by Lil Wayne. And basically what I did was I went through the whole track, and I'm not gonna play back the track. What I'll do is I'll remove the level on my master, so none of the audio plays back. But I'll enable it and I'll pull up the wave candy, so you can see what's going on in the track. And the other thing I'll do, I'll just leave it here. So, oh yeah, let's mute, or let's solve the track. So essentially what I'll do is I'll end up using these tracks as reference tracks for not just mixing, but also for song structure. So what you'll see here is that we have the drums from the President Carter track, and they're being low pass at 10K. And eventually when it drops right now, you're going to get the full spectrum of drums. Right there, you see that? So that's a little cool technique to make your drums have a little bit more impact. Also, a lot of DJs use this, so low pass or high pass things. So it's very interesting to have all these, to see all these arrangement tricks that producers use. Now, the other thing they'll do is they'll drop some drums right now. See, the drums will be removed, and you only have the melodic instruments, and then the drum beats come back in. And let's see right here. So even by not even like listening to the track, you can start breaking it down. You can see that the bass was dropped right there. And what I'll do is I'll come up here to my to the top of my playlist, and I'll basically write out or create little markers of what's going on with the track. So let's say if there is a rise right here, I'll type it down, rise. You know, there isn't one right there, but if there was, I would write that in there. Right here, I added, oh, there's a choir, and you can see that even by just looking at the spectrum. So right here, it's going to get really busy once the choir kicks in. See that? You can even see it up here. So it's really cool to go through tracks and see what they're doing. Here they drop the kick and the snare on the first beat. See that? And then over here, they drop a beat again. And they add a little kick before the main kick comes in. And then eventually, you get to like a C section at the very end of the track, where they introduce a little tiny stabs. You can barely hear them, but let's see if we can see them in the spectrum. I can't really tell, but they're really hard to see them right now. But if I were to play this, you hear them. They're very, very small. But they add a lot of these little psychoacoustic tricks. And it's funny because people will say, hey, hip-hop's like such a minimal genre. It's not worthy. I don't know what they're talking about. They've never listened to hip-hop in their lives. So just by looking at this, you can see, okay, the chord structure on this is they have 4 chords that play out through 4 bars. So essentially the chords are sustained through the entire bar, but then there's little instruments on top. There's even like a little bit of a polka bass or polka chords here. On the original track, you can see that because there's a low note and then rises, low note and then rises. And then every once in a while, you start to get little effects on the sides. So here, for example, they introduce strings. So there's a bunch of little cool things that you can see. And again, when they do the outro of the track, they low pass the drums again. So again, that's very DJ-like that they do that. It happens in EDM often where they do a low cut or they do a high cut right before the drop. But as you can see here, I've went ahead and I broke every little change down on the track. So low pass, rise, beat comes in full with the melody. You have the choir. There's a mini riser. The bass is cut out, yada, yada, yada. And I've done it for the whole track. Now, what you can do is, I've done the whole beat here, but I've also saved it as a template. So if I come down here, actually, I need to go to that project file, save as, open. Let me just copy this. so I can open it. So I made a little template called Quick Hip Hop Arrangement. And now I can just load up this whenever I'm kind of done making a beat and need to arrange it. I can load this up and then I'll just slap my melody, slap my patterns, and follow this arrangement. Now, let me play back the demo that I have. And usually what ends up happening is that when you add an artist to the mix, they want to rearrange the stuff. So your arrangement becomes a little bit different, but at least you have something to show people. So let me load up my demo. And you guys get the idea. Essentially, it has given me a shortcut to actually have a finished arrangement. Now, there's more instruments I can add. Of course, I would also add effects after I have a vocalist on this, or rapper, vocalist, whatever, whoever decides to get on this. I'll record them, and then I'll add effects after. We can add some effects in a minute, just so you can see how to load effects and all that in ZFO. But let me show you here the last section right here. So, because I knew that I had to write a C section, because I referenced this other track, I have a C section right here, which I wouldn't have otherwise. Because usually we are stuck making beats, and then we're like, okay, we got the main idea, but what can we do to have a counterpart for it? And then you got to finish with the outro. So that's really cool that, you know, within let's say 15-20 minutes after I was done with the actual musical idea of the beat, which is essentially this. After I was done with that, within like 15 minutes I had the rest of the track because I have that template made for myself. Now, what I'm going to do here is show you how to record external audio. So what I'll do is I'll duplicate this arrangement. Now, a lot of people don't know this about FL, but you can have multiple arrangements in a single project file. So what I'll do is I'll clone this arrangement. I'll call this test dummy. And now I can delete basically all my audio that I recorded. And you can go ahead and re-record some of this. I actually made a mistake. Let me show you the mistake in the bass. I don't know if you guys picked it up, but when this extra note plays with the kick, sometimes it gets a little bit messy. So I want to see if I can remove that. So what I'll do is, like I said, I'll remove all that audio. Boom. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll create a little range so I can do my recording. Now, because I'm using hardware to record this, what I'll do is I'll go to my track, which was the club bass track. I'm going to go to my presets inside my virus. My virus is a hardware synthesizer, and it's routed to my analog input ADAT, or it's routed through my ADAT inputs 1 and 2. So now when I go to my MIDI out plugin, I can select the port, which is port number 3 in this case. And now that's loading my hardware, or affecting my hardware. And the way I set that up is very easy. If I press F10, you can load up your MIDI in and out devices. If you can also see that page if you go to options, MIDI devices. And you can set up your inputs and outputs here for MIDI. So you see here that my Akai Advance MIDI port number 2 is sent to port number 3, which is the port that the virus C is using. So there I'm using this to trigger my virus. Now, a cool thing about FL is that you can actually, I'm not going to change my preset right here, but actually I think I can. If I go to virus, sometimes they have presets for hardware here. I don't think I have my presets here, because this is a newer installation of FL, because I wanted to keep it clean for the class. But essentially, you can click through here, and you'll find that there's a lot of templates for hardware synthesizers or hardware samplers or whatever you're using. And even if you don't, if there's not one here, if you go online, you can download one. And you can have, oh, here we go. It's the first one. Here's the, so essentially now you can treat your hardware synthesizer almost like if it were hardware. So let's see. Oh, I have to activate it. So there's a lot of connectivity, even if you're using hardware or like using hardware. FL doesn't really say no, you have to use all the built-in instruments. You can still go ahead and use a lot of hardware. But I'm gonna go back to the default because that's how I had it. I'm gonna load up my patch again. Channel 1. Okay. Awesome. So now what I'll do is, like I said, I created the recording range, and I'll come over here to my enable and disable input or direct input recording. So essentially, here we can select if we want to record post effects or pre effects. So if you hear this, there's some sidechaining going on when I'm doing this recording. So what I'll do is I'll set this to be pre-recording. So now this audio will be recorded pre-fader. So now the next thing I'll do is I'll press R on FL to record the next time I play. Press play. It's going to give me a count in. Now that feature is very helpful because if you put it on post, it'll record it, like I said, with the processing. But if, let's say, a artist wants to have reverb on their track, but you don't want to record that reverb, you can put it to pre and record pre effects. The other cool thing is that back in the day, what I would do is I'd basically have to bring the channel back up after I copied its value, and then I would bring the channel back to 0 so I could record at the the highest level possibly, and then I would import the audio back in and lower the level of this. But when you have this already set up, it works basically effortlessly. So now these are all, you can just mute your MIDI and you're good. So I really like that way of recording on FL. And again, this is applicable to vocals. Let me see some of the questions that you guys have in the chat. Did I cover vocal mixing? I didn't cover vocal mixing specifically. I did want to get an artist in here, but I couldn't because of the quarantine. But I did cover lots of plugins that are specific for vocals. So I covered EQs, reverb. I really highly suggest going back to the effects class that we did last week, and actually see some of the effects plugins that I covered. So I covered the Fruity Reverb 2 and the Fruity Delay 3. They're two very powerful plugins. The Delay 3 is especially underrated. I think the Delay 3 is one of the best delays there is. Even if you're paying for a third-party delay, the Fruity Delay 3 might still be better than that delay that you paid $50 for, $100 for. So if you learn how to use it properly, you get a lot of mileage out of it. Let me just load it up for a second. Let's solo the bass. Okay, so that doesn't sound tasteful at all. So what we'll do is I'll bring the tone up. I'll set this to bandpass mode. I'll set it to ping pong, and I'll reduce my time to 2. And then once you bring the delay time down, add a little bit of modulation, diffusion, which I don't see a lot of delay plugins have, or the feedback distortion. So this can emulate saturation. So sometimes when you're recording analog delay, sometimes you can overdrive the inputs and outputs of things, so you can simulate that with this feedback distortion. And it does it really cool. Listen, let me put the feedback level up high. Hear how cool is that? I mean, I don't know another delay that once you add more feedback to it, you can run it through distortion and keep on distorting it even more. That's really, really cool. Okay, let's close this for a second. Okay, so yeah, make sure you check out those other videos because those are very, very in-depth. Now, sometimes when you record hardware, what you will find is that sometimes the device is clocked a little bit faster than you like. So right here you can see that the actual beginning note is a little bit in front of where our actual beat drops. So what I'll do is quite simply is I'll cut this and I'll drag this a little bit back. So it stays in time. And now that fits in perfectly with the rest of the track. Let's play back. Very clean. Now, the next thing I did was, and I'm not going to record again because you guys got the memo of how to record. So the next thing I did was I recorded a bunch of these hits. You see here that they're a little bit forward again, so let's push them back. And some of these delays are off, so eventually what I ended up doing was I recorded a clean take with no effects on it. And you can also see right here, I'm pressing S or the slip tool to slip to a better position in time for the audio file. So without even having to cut, I can like run around and search for a better positioning for my audio. This is also really cool when editing beats because you can just slip around and find a better or cooler sounding hit. So let's see this. So that might be cooler to some people than having just one hit on the first beat. You can just quickly test it out, like I said. That fast. Now what I did is I grabbed a fruity delay and put it on that mixer track. And I can decide, hey, do I want to have this in quarter notes, if I want to have this in triplets. If I want this to be in stereo or mono. I tend to prefer ping pong. I don't know why, I just tend to like it more. Oh, there's some buzzing. Oh, it's probably from let's see. Let me know if it's gone now. Let me see if I can hear it. Oh, okay. Hold on. No, I cannot hear that buzzing on my end. Hold on. Let's see. Hold on, give me a second. Hello. Let me know if you guys can still hear the buzz over here, because I think I found the problem. My input 2 was being picked up by OBS, which is kind of strange. Also, sorry if there's any background noise. There is nothing I can do about the background noise. Okay, so the buzzing is gone. Okay, cool. All right, awesome. So let's go back to, where were we? We're looking at the delays, right? For the little stab. So let's go back to this thing. And I was saying how I think I prefer changing it for the No, I can't hear anything. Okay, there we go. What I decided to do was add the free delay, because instead of having this the delay from the virus, which sounds very good, but you can't control over after the fact, I would come in here to the delay and control it with the feedback, the cutoff, and some of the diffusion in here. And the cool thing about this delay is if you put the resonance pretty high, you'll quickly start getting some cutoff. See that? Whereas when you add the resonance, the cutoff comes in quicker. No, you guys can't hear me at all. Okay, awesome. Let me know if you guys can still hear me, because on my end, it's supposed to be working fine. But as you guys saw for the past 10 minutes, it wasn't. You should be getting audio from my voice and I just opened it on my phone. It feels to be fine now. Okay. So yeah, let's wrap it up with the other project. Let's move on to this one. Which is more EDM-like. So what I'll do now is lay this out and do some automation. So remember, automation info is really simple to do. Let's say I want to automate this X parameter, which is controlling the cutoff on the synthesizer. I can simply right click and press A to create a cutoff modulation. And then if I click on steps editing, I can do either node editing like this, where I can engage multiple different curve types. Let's do wave. Oh, zoom in. That's more like an LFO. let's stick to the single curve right now. You could also do the step editing like this. And then disengage it and go back to using nodes manually like that by right clicking. It's that easy to do. Now, if I wanted to link that same automation clip to a different instrument, let's say you hear this background synth. Let's say I want to link it to the filter cutoff directly instead of using the mod X and mod Y. I can right click, select link to controller, set it to modulation X, and now I'm going to remove conflicts. What you can do by removing conflicts is setting up one automation clip to trigger multiple automations. Accept. And now both of those parameters are being modulated by the same automation clip. You can do this for as many parameters as you want. As far as I know, I never actually found a limit, and I'm pretty sure I routed at least 7 or 8 different parameters within one automation clip, if not more. So it should be okay. Now the next thing we're gonna do is look at some of these plugins. So we covered editing, audio MIDI a little bit, and also automation. Let's look at some of these plugins. So here we have the kick plugin. Very easy to use. You can select the duration of the kick. So if you want something that's more like an 808, let's go to a new pattern. Press F4, close 808. You can remove the little click on the top end, which is so typical in EDM kicks, by coming to this click section right here. You can lower the mix, and now the little click should be gone now. You can even change the type of kick or click we have. Okay. The next thing I'll do is I'll change the slide parameter. And bring the peak down. And now you get something that's more like an 808. The next thing I'll do is I'll push a drive. And kabam, it's super distorted. You can also control the sub bass here to change the balance, which is very important. I see a lot of synths that don't have this. I'm not going to name any names of the commercial synths that are very popular, but they don't have this, like even an EQ for just the bass. So the fact that you can come in and EQ here means you can provide a balance of the low end. Because, for example, that's definitely too much low end. But if you bring it back too little and then somewhere around there's a sweet spot. You can also change the attack to remove the clickiness. And here's the click level. You can also change the kick frequency. And here's like the body, or like the pitch envelope. I mean, that is tremendously fat. There's still hiss. There's still noise. Huh. Let me mute my microphone real quick. It's so I think out of all the live streams, this was the final one had to be the one where all the errors come in. I can hear the hiss. I'm not. Let me see. I turn off my hardware synths to see if that removes the noise, but let's take another listen. Off my hardware. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what's up with this. Honestly, I do not know, because the only other option would be to swap out my microphone. Give me a second. Buenas, buenas. Buenas, buenas. Buenas, buenas. Buenas, buenas. Buenas, buenas. Buenas, buenas. All right. Oh, sorry. This is all live. I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah. Hopefully the buzz is gone now. Honestly, this is the second time I swapped the mic out now. Okay, it sounds so much better. I'm sorry. Like I said, the streaming setup I had is basically the same as the last stream, so I don't know what went wrong. But anyway, let's go try to finish this thing. So we're looking at some of the instruments from FL. We have the bass drum. You can get very diverse kicks out of this. It's slice. And move the click a little bit down. there you go. Saturation. Cool. Now I can do now. I wanted to put this in my track and resample it, treat it like a actual sample. I could come in, right click, and select right click on the pattern, make it an audio clip, and I'll select render and replace. And there I have an 808. What I'll do now is I'll drag it back into the session as a sample. There you go. Let's remove that, and then I'll drag it back into the track. And let's lay down a drum pattern right here. And we can type in the note value. So this is, I believe, look at the spectrum analyzer. It's somewhere around E. Then I can go to the wrench tool and tell FL Studio that this is E. Now I should play the right notes. You can also detect the note pitch by going to Edison by right clicking, select Edit in Audio Editor. And then I can select, let's see, over here under the region markers, select Detect Pitch Region. Boom, there we go. So this is, in fact, mostly in E, though it ends in F, strangely. So what you could do is drop it down a little bit lower in pitch by going to the resample method, selecting stretch, and then bring the pitch just down, let's say, to 30 cents. So now we know for sure this is in the right note. And then let's play the melody again. I think I intended to write that in A minor, but it came out in C major, so sorry for me. I'm gonna have to write a 808 beat in C major, which I don't think many people do. All right, let's see. Right click to go to the piano roll. Chord beat. Another tip here for the 808s is if you go to the wrench tool, select cuts off. Now your 808s aren't going to overlap. And if the level of this is a little too quiet, you can normalize this. Now you got the full level that we had while we were monitoring the original instrument. Drop this lower. Let's do E. Another cool thing is we can come in here and further edit the pitch. So if I go to the volume, say I don't want that click to be so prevalent. I can even do a little bit of filtering. Let's go to the pitch envelope, like I said earlier, and what we'll do is a tiny bit of it. And that changes the way the 808 pitches down. This so you can play around with that and try out different techniques. Let's also go into the pre-computed effects and select boost distortion. You can have this parameter here called pogo, and this will shift the speed of the kick is pitch. So the way that the kick pitches down is completely changed. So strange, but there you go. You got a really fat 808 with the EDM lead. It could work if you're making a EDM trap, that's for sure. Okay. Let me see what other questions do you guys have. I know we like 20 minutes went by during technical difficulties, but let me see what type of questions you got. This flex demo. How cool is that? It's just flex by itself. Hold on. Let's look at this one. Sorry, my phone is tripping out. Okay. So, let's how to base this. Let's press F4 to make a new pattern called base. And we'll add another instance of flex. See if it has cellos, strings. Oh, we do have bass. Okay, cool. Cool, perfect. So what I'll do is I go to the pads right here. I'll press right click and drag to select multiple notes. And I'll just go for the first note. Just Control C. Go back to the bass pattern. Go to FX, right click to go to piano roll. Press Control V. Paste it. I'm gonna press Control L to addition this pattern. Of course, I have to bring those notes down. I can do that by pressing Control, arrow down, and let's sustain them. I could do this by pressing Control L. Unfortunately, the last note usually doesn't want to follow orders, so you have to drag it out. But besides that, all the other notes will. let's put this on channel 14 for now. Let's go back to the playlist, press F5. So you can barely hear the cello, but listen to all the depth and all the bass it adds. How did I get the 808 into the sampler? Question we had earlier. Oh, it's very simple. So what I did basically was let's do that with the cello. Let's cut this right here, and this cello note is G2. So let's sample it real quick. I'm gonna make this unique. I'm gonna rename this cello G, and I'll click up here on the pattern picker. So a lot of people they will work with patterns, like usually most FL users do, but they'll forget that up here under the pattern picker, there's a lot of information, a lot of shortcuts regarding the patterns, which includes the rendering section right here. So if I select the split by channel, I can split a pattern up. If I quick render as an audio clip, I can render this as an audio clip and keep all my patterns intact. I can also render as an audio clip, and which will open up a dialog box with all the options to render. So right here, I'll select if I want to enable insert effects, or if I don't, if I want to even enable the master effects. Or if I go back there, if I select render and replace, this will open up that tab again, and it'll ask me, hey, do you want to enable the master effects? No. Insert effects? No in this case. What your wave bit depth you want it to be? Let's choose 32-bit. It's in case I'm distorting. Resampling, 128 is more than enough. Again, if you're using wave, if you know you're not clipping, you can use 24-bit. In this case, I believe I'm not, so I'm going to keep it like that. Press start. And boom, we have replaced that clip. Now, what I did was I just simply came to my channel rack and I grabbed that audio clip and I dragged it to the tab right here, and it automatically created a sample instrument out of it. Again, I normalized it so it's nice and loud. And now we can resample it. We can load it to Harmor. We can load it up in other synthesizers, or even here we can do some crazy effects with it. So let's grab computer effects, add some boost to this, distort it. Then we can add some RM modulation. Let's resample this in stretch mode and put the pitch all the way down to an octave. And of course, we're going to go into the piano roll, the wrench tool right here before we hit the piano roll, and tell it that this note should be in G. As a matter of fact, we can tell it, hey, it's up here. So now what I'll do is I'll copy the bass notes from the outer pattern. Control C. Go to that new sample cello. Press Control V to paste them there. And now I have that cello that I just made playing with the original cello. And the cool thing is, because I'm using FL, I can do the slide notes here. At the end of the bar, I can do a really quick slide note. For example. See how that sounds in the context of the whole track? Barely notice it, but it just adds a little bit of movement to this. It's added to these other notes here as well. Of hybrid orchestration between synthesizers and stringed instruments. We got a question. How come my channels routed to the buses come unplugged after by themselves? I don't think they should be doing that. I don't think I've ever had that happen to me. The case would be, let's see. I mean, unless you change these right here, but the numbers manually, or you have pressed shift and left, and use a scroll wheel, or the left and the right click to move things around. I mean, you shouldn't have an issue with the tracks unplugging, including with the buses too. However, with the buses, let's see, they should carry over those settings. So it could be the case that you knocked over the instrument by accident and you put it on the wrong channel now. So then that messes up the place where it was. I think that's the only way I can think of that happening. But FL, for the most part, if we close this down, it doesn't have any issues regarding that. Let's open it again. And it's going to boot back into the default project that I had. But if you look there, even when I reboot FL, like, the routing is intact, so it shouldn't be an issue. Okay, let's hop over to the next topic. Look at some of the effects. Grab. For the LUT filter. Oh, turn off my virus. Because of the buzzing we had earlier. But I guess it might have been my mic was broke down literally in front of the audience, because I use one of these Shure microphones that they use for like conferences. So you put it behind your ear and you put it in front of your mouth, so it's like how do you say, it's like a lapel mic, but basically it sticks out in front of you, so that way when I'm moving around my head, like, the microphone still stays in the right position. But I guess it broke on me then, if it was having that many buzzing problems. Fine. So here I have this little demo track using the free LUT filter. this demo, I want to show the modularity of the FL Effects and the controllers. So you cannot speak about FL Studio Effects without talking about the controllers. So in the other live stream, I covered basically a lot of the included plugins. So I talked about the reverbs, the delays, which I have talked about today as well. And also some of the compression. I think I did 45 minutes of compression last week. So that's, something that you guys need to look at. I covered a lot of the dynamics plugins. So take a look at that other class. But it would be a pity to send you guys off without actually covering some of the envelope controllers and some of the controllers that affect your synth plugins and also your effects plugins inside of FL, which are very, very powerful. So I have used a Fruity Love filter essentially as a filter, a master filter for all my synth leads. So usually with the synthesizer, what you'll find is that as you start stacking more of them together, especially because a lot of synths that you might have are from different companies, the envelope parameters on them will be a little bit different. So the filter cutoff will sound a little bit different. The envelope will have timing differences. And when you're creating leads, you usually don't want to deal with that because then you get a lot of phasing issues. You get a lack of consistency. So what I've done here is I sent all my leads. Let me mute them or solve them here. To this lead bus that has the Fruity Love filter. That controls the cutoff of all of them together. So essentially, I'm bypassing all their filters. You'll see here that I have the filter cutoff all the way open. The same thing with Hive. Cutoff is all the way open to let all the frequencies through. And then I can remove those frequencies using the Fruity Love filter. But then, by using the Fruity Envelope controller, what I can do is give this Fruity Love filter a retriggerable cutoff. What I mean by that is I can create an envelope with the controller and send its envelope via right-clicking on the cutoff as a link parameter. Yeah, if I select link 1 and tell it to go to the Fruity Envelope Controller Articulator 1, it'll be linked to this articulator in this Fruity Envelope Controller. And there's 8 envelopes that you can use in total. So let's say I wanted to create something that's a little bit softer. I can go back to a cutoff, link to controller, link it to articulator 2 now. Accept. Let me load up the envelope controller. Oh, my bad. It should be linked to number 5. Accept. Instead of when I had it linked to articulator number 1, you have this plucky type of sound to the synthesizers. So by using these controllers inside of FL Studio, you completely expand the range of effects and the type of effects you have. You could have as easily used this envelope controller to modulate, let's say, an EQ parameter. So let's say you set band number 4, and let's say we wanted to affect the amplitude of this boost right here. You can right click and select link to controller, link it to filter or Fruity Envelope Creator number 1, hit accept. And now you created a dip in the spectrum. According to what this envelope controller is suggesting, you could even, do multiple hits. And let's snap the tempo here so that we're not going completely off the grid. Now, if we didn't want this to dip as much, what we can do is right-click, select Link to Controller, and put it in an input mapping formula. You don't have to know lots of math, though, because there's a lot of formulas within. So let's say we wanted this to have a inverted increment, and we wanted this to have a 1/10 of the inverted increment. And now this is barely moving. Let's Link to Controller. Let's try another one. Let's do 4 times smaller increment. Let's see. Oh, let's do the opposite of this. Inverted. Go. Again, I'm gonna go back in here and add I don't remember the formula. I think it was 4 or 0.25. There, one should work. So essentially, you can create all this madness out of using these controllers over here. Let's do let's see, inverted second half or first half. And you see how I brought the bass up, and this helps attenuate the level here. So you're able to create basically new effects that you basically just made up in your mind. So this, you could call it a envelope EQ booster, and that's really what it is. Let's see some of the questions that you guys have. Roblox Maniac Dance on Shake asked, that's a lovely name, by the way, asked, you know what, you should, would it be possible to do an entire video just on routing and automation? It really makes the difference, meaning the level of automation knowledge for Bass Hunter. Well, that's cool. So basically, as I was mentioning earlier, let's load up. I don't know if you were here earlier with this other project that we loaded, but essentially you have automations in the file which are separate from MIDI CCs. So if you're going to do MIDI CC on a let's say instrument, what you would do is come and record over here. Let's do automation recording, of course, and let's right click. And now this automation that you're recording is in CC. Hold on, I need to sneeze. Sorry about that. So, going back to this, you go to the MIDI parameters here, you'll see that the pattern controls is controlling the frequency. So, go back here. you'll see that the PC is being controlled, or controlling the filter frequency, and this is on a per parameter basis. So if I were to make this other parameter or other pattern unique, I could go ahead and change the routing of this. And if I want to have more detail editing right there, I can change the snap to none. And now I have the highest detail for my CC. And that's one way of doing automation. Now, most people don't do this unless they're doing orchestral composing, because it's not as easily accessible as if you were to do automation via FL's playlist. So what I'll do is I'll open up a new project. It's also important to note that if you do export your MIDI like this, you can also export out the automation that you did, because it's CC. So if I go to File, Export as MIDI file, the MIDI file will contain this automation that you did. So it's cool to take to other programs and other MIDI editors. Let me reset this project. Since we are here, instead of doing what we just did, let's do this the way most people do automation in FL, which is automating the parameters itself on the playlist. That's simple. It's very simple to do. You just right click and select create automation clip, or right click and press A, because any of these other drop down menu options, they have a letter underlined, and that's the shortcut letter. So press A, and an automation clip was created. I could also do that with the resonance. Right click, press A, and an automation clip is created. Now, here, I can use nodes to create different automation types. I can even use different wave types, even some LFOs. Do automation. Now, as I mentioned before, these automation clips, because they also double up as controllers inside FL Studio, just going back to the topic I was talking about earlier with the Fruity Love filter and the Fruity Envelope controller, is I can now grab another parameter like the X pad on the Citrus, right click, select link to controller, and I can tell it to be modulated by the filter 1 frequency. And when you select remove conflicts, it will delete all the other parameters that are linked to that automation clip, so you don't want to do that. Deselect it, press accept. Those parameters are now together, right? So let's add up the last Citrus, which is doing the cutoff via the filter. And it's linked that parameter as well, link to controller, select link controller filter 1 frequency, accept. And now they're all moving together. If I go back to playlist, I can go to step editing, and I can select my quantization to be none, and I can draw almost as I did with the MIDI CC, except this is not MIDI CC, they're just nodes. So this is fantastic because it will save you a lot of time when you have to create automations for many EDM synths, especially when you're doing like risers or have a EDM drop and you're trying to do the same automation for all these different synthesizers. You don't even have to copy and paste, and you just simply right click and link to controller. It's that simple. The other crazy thing about FL Studio is let's clean this up real quick, is the fact that you can automate automation clips via other automation clips. What I mean now is that, let's say we got this automation clip. We can grab the minimum parameter of this in the maximum setting, or the maximum value of the automation clip, and automate that. So do this, create automation clip for the main. And now what I can do is grab this automation clip, the original one, and set it to be an LFO. And now I can control this other automation clip. LFO. This is the one. I can even come in and automate the speed of this. You can get pretty crazy with this. Let's slow the speed a bit. That's really cool. I mean, I don't know another program that where you can automate your automation clips. It's pretty cool. And of course, you can use these as controllers as well, so you can control other parameters. It's a very deep program. Let's see. There's other questions. Hop back into the quick hip-hop arrangement. Real quick. Let's take a quick look at some of the effects that we have in FL again. Look at this kick drum. It's absolutely massive. It's super distorted. However, not because it's distorted and loud doesn't mean that it's gonna go through, punch out through the mix. let me show you just that. So if I play this track back, the kick has a really hard time punching through the mix and actually landing in front of the bass. So the bass is pretty loud, but it's not loud to the point where it should be completely covering up the kick. The problem is the kick is so distorted that it has a lack of dynamics. So if I go the kick, you see there that doesn't have really transients nor dynamics right there. So what I'll do is I'll introduce a transient processor, but add a little bit of transients back. You see there how much more can we get out of that kick and the attack. Let's listen to this in the context of the mix. Get a nice punchy sounding kick. You can also change the releases. If you find that your kick has some rumble, what you can do is remove the release down. And clean up some of it. The next thing I want to look at real quickly is Patcher. So Patcher is basically a modular environment. So we covered most of these effects inside Patcher already in the previous class. The parametric EQ2 is a A-band EQ that has multiple different band shapes, types as well. Now, what I've done with the Patcher is essentially split the signal up into two different chains. So one is just a parametric EQ2 that just has the bottom part of the kick, nothing too present above 10K. You just get a little bit of the stuff that didn't filter out properly. And then on the parametric EQ2 over here, we get that high end. And not only that, but we are running it through a reverb and a distortion plugin. So let's listen to that, just the high end by itself. It was really feeble. So if you added the rest of the kick in, or the clap, I mean, it was really feeble. So what I ended up doing was I routed it through distortion. After I added a little tiny bit of reverb to help the sustain, and I put the pregame halfway up there, and the mix all the way up. And there you go. You have a much more present clap you wouldn't have had this without the modular environment of Patcher. Let me show you quickly other things that are done with Patcher. So I have synths that I made inside Patcher as well. Let's see this. And you can even give them GUIs, so that's really, really cool. So, like I said, Patcher is basically just a modular environment inside a file. If I look at the map right here, you'll see that this instrument contains a citrus that's going into vocodex, that's simultaneously going through a chorus, then a flanger, and then they're brought back together with an EQ, and then they're flipped before they go to another reverb, and then they go back to a file. So this is what this sounds like. Let's mute it. Something's not connected properly. There we go. Let's see. Something became unplugged. Oh. Oh. The free send is getting in the way, I think. Both of these. Because I probably set them up to be in a different configuration back in the day. Anyway, there should be a cleaner cleaner version of this I want here. There you go. Essentially, it's a one note or riser. So basically, I run this through Serum. I could also have run it through Citrus into Centaurus, and then Anthracite, which is a stereo flanger, parametric EQ2, and then finally back to a file. So I'll lower the output level of this. And basically with one note, I have that effect that would have taken me much longer to set up automation for and all this other stuff. Essentially what I just did was I went to Citrus and I created a pitch envelope that was 4 bars. And yeah, I just press play or press any note that I want. And I'll get a riser in that desired key. It's very helpful when I'm doing risers or just trying to finish a song. I can just plug this in there and boom, just press one note and I have my risers done for that track. Now, I've done something similar with these with Patcher, but with effects. So if I go to my master, right click and add a Patcher. Come on. If I play back the track, you hear that there's no audio. So what you got to do is link FL output to the other FL output. And now I can add any of the effects I want. So let's add a 40 parametric EQ2. So let's see, now I wanted to add a DJ style filter. could go ahead and do that. The other thing I could do is, let's add a reverb. And as you can see there, I'm just dragging and dropping plugins into this yellow line, which is carrying audio. And I can start creating these cool psychoacoustic effects that you can use on your build-ups or during a little tiny break to create a little glitch or something. Let's add the effectrix, or not effectrix, the effector. Let's put this in reverb. You can also add Now the cool thing about all these plugins is that I can quickly automate the patcher on and off on my playlist. So if I come up to my master or the top part of my playlist, I can right click and press I to create a new track. I can call this master effects. And now I can automate some of the patcher parameters. I'm going to right click to create a automation clip for that patcher instance. And what I'll do is make sure that it's turned off on both ends. And I'll turn off whenever I want it to be on. So let's say I wanted to turn on right before the drop here. Then I could put at the end of every 4 bars or so. Or maybe just on that snare to make it really, really fat. There you go. That's a completely new way of doing effects and doing basically like DJ style effects on your actual track. Like I said, you can use Patcher for many things, to create instruments, to create effects plugins. You can have let me load up a second Patcher. Presets included that do very interesting things. You have one that does vocal writing. So if I go to vocal writer, we have a range maximum and a minimum range. And basically, if you're running vocals through this, they will be brought up to a minimum value. And if they go above a certain value, they'll be brought down to the maximum value you set it to be. Very, very helpful. Inside the plugin, it looks like this. So some guy took a lot of time and wrote formulas for this. Using various effects like the fruity limiter, low filter, and EQs, and a lot of these formula controllers. And inside it, there's a little manual. See that? That's really cool. There's a ton of these, like I'm telling you. There's the Note EQ. So let's say I know that my track is in this might be C or not C minor. Well, A or A minor. So what I can do is boost the A's by pressing this note right here. And essentially what this does is it brings down all the notes that are in A. See this? How cool is that? And I can go ahead and do this for all the notes in that are available to me. So 12 notes. And I can change the slope and the width of all this as well. So it's a very cool, interesting little plugin that someone made. And we have a ton included. Let's do a... Where's the oppressor duo? So this is a dual band multiband compressor and limiter. And it looks like this. But inside, it was a ton of different limiters and panel plugins and a bunch of wizardry that these guys did. A lot of math involved. And they created a new little plugin for you. So you can actually go to the ImageOn forums and ask someone to make a plugin for you. Let's say you wanted to have a de-esser that only targeted the 5K to 13K range, but also brought in some of your high sheen back. So as you brought down the S's, you brought in a little bit of 18K back. You can ask someone to build that plugin for you, and some guy in the ImageOn forum will actually be really happy to try it out and give you a plugin that the whole community can use. And actually, there's a de-esser right here. So yeah, man, it's a world. It's a different. FL is a very underrated world. So here we have the documentation on this patcher preset. It says this preset is de-esser. Will have automatic threshold manual. Inspect. Click to hear frequencies that you want to de-ess. Wow. So they even have a solo the S's button right here. That's really cool. Let's actually try that out on our master right here. That's really cool. So not only do you get the built-in plugins of FL, but you also get access to a lot of these patcher plugins that people made. So that's a little bit more advanced, but I think that's a very compelling reason to try FL. And another reason why a lot of people love FL, because it's a fantastic program for sound design as well, because we have the ability to make our own patched up synths and our own patched up effects. Let me see if anyone else has another question. I have 5 people watching still. I did go a little bit towards 2.5 hours because we did have pretty much 20 minutes of my microphone deciding not to work and perhaps even dying. I hope it didn't die, but we'll see. Someone asked something in Russian, but I can't read Russian. Let's see. See if I can use Google Translate real quick. Google Translate. You literally said, "Do you understand Russian?" I don't understand Russian. However, if you ask a question and I can run it through Google Translate, and if it works fine, I can answer in English, and then you can kind of see what I'm doing. I did a tutorial back in the day in English and in Spanish, and then I found it somewhere on someone else's YouTube channel translated in Russian, which was very, very funny because I'm talking about a YouTube video from like 2016. Then someone just ripped off my channel that I had back then and uploaded it somewhere else in Russian, which is very funny. Yeah, also, if you have any questions in Spanish, sale español, no hay problema, así que le podemos contestar. But Russian, I don't know Russian. German, Italian, I could kind of understand. French, no, I don't understand French. But the German, I can understand, and Italian with a little bit of help. But for the most part, if the topics are music, I pretty much understand. Music or soccer, I understand. It's not that difficult. Okay, so we got 6 people left in the chat. If you have, like I said, if you have questions, let me know so we can answer them. Also, we did cover quite a bit. Let me go over the other classes if you guys weren't aware of them. So we did a full course for FL Studio for Pro Tools users. We did an intro to FL's workflow, recording and audio editing, May 28th. Then June 18th, we did MIDI editing. June 25th, we did FL Studio synthesizers. Excuse me. And then July 16th, we covered FL Studio effects. And today we just reviewed as much as we could within a 2-hour period of all the other classes that we had. But yeah, go check out those videos. And also, if you aren't aware of the FL Studio Club on Facebook, it is our group, the monitored group, which means that you're not going to have any annoying spam that you usually see in other other Facebook groups where they, say, hey, check out my beat, bro. But instead, here we have a little bit of regulation. So you can upload tutorials, you can ask questions, and we can answer them. But we don't have, people coming and spamming all the time. So go check out the FL Studio Club on Facebook. Let me drop down the link on the chat. What is going on here? It's trippy. Oh. I'm going to drop down the link in the chat. So if you're not part of that group, make sure you add us. And there's a ton of content there already. There's probably, I think I must have done at least 10 to 15 live streams there. And there's also videos that I uploaded for a while. So there's going to be lots of content there for you to learn from. Okay, so I think I'm going to call it a day now because it's 2:30. So we did cover up those 20 minutes that I was stuck here, not knowing what's going on in my system. So I'm going to go ahead and check that out after the live stream. But I'm going to thank you for joining us here, Music Marketing TV. I think we got another question. Oh no. So I'm going to thank you for being here with us on Music Marketing TV. Once again, I'm Kevin Ochoa, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.